years in between each trip, and each person, it's sort of just an excuse to go to Cuba, but each person it has to be a mission where you're going to help people, otherwise the U.S. government doesn't let you go to Cuba. So we had to donate money, each person had to donate money, then you had to bring medicine or clothing or something, and then when they're in Cuba, when we were in Cuba, we would pass it around to different Jewish communities. So we went to 5 different synagogues while we were there, and each synagogue we gave them a check of money and different prescriptions and stuff, right? Cash, and so these are the first place we went was Ernest Hemingway's house. So these are things you're seeing of he had a pool there, and he had a house where he lived there in the 20s or so. He had a boat that was on dry dock here, and a mansion and a tower where he wrote. He wrote at the top of the sat at the top of this tower and wrote books. Ernest Hemingway. He loved Cuba, and in 1959, when there was a revolution and they tried to ban pigs to try to get rid of Fidel Castro, he committed suicide at that time. And his wife then donated the house as a museum, and they gave his boat to his ship's captain, but he refused to sail it, so they put it in with the house. So that's the tower where he wrote. Cuba has these 1950s cars because they're just too poor to import cars from Europe or Japan. They did have a lot of Russian cars also, and Cuba did pretty well when Russia was helping them. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, then Cuba was very poor from then on, and that's what we saw. These are figures of Fidel Castro and Che Guevara that were in this big square that they had. And we went to a Sephardic synagogue. The Sephardim this is a Sephardic synagogue, they came to Cuba from Turkey in the early 1900s because Turkey passed a law where it was a secular government instead of a Muslim government. Being secular, it allowed them to draft all types of people into the army, so Jews could be drafted in the army, so a lot of Jews left Turkey. And my father's father left Salonika, which was in Turkey at the time, and he traveled because of that reason. And my mother's mother also left Turkey with her family, and they couldn't get in the United States immediately, and so they lived in Santiago, Cuba. We had a lecture in the beginning, and they described all this Turkish Jews coming to Cuba, and they lived in this town. So we said, me and my dad said that his mother-in-law, my grandmother, was one of those people, and we think she lived there from about 1920 till the late 20s, maybe 5 to 8 years, and then she came to Chicago to get married. Her and her brother married a man and his sister in Chicago, So they said, well, what was her maiden name? And we said Bivas or Levy, and they said a Siprut, right? Siprut or Levy, and they knew a cantor in this town of Santiago, a Jewish cantor named Siprut. So, but we couldn't get to Santiago because it would have been 18 hours of driving. We drove 6 hours. They don't have good highways, and so we didn't get to that town. But Cuba has about 1920s to 1950s architecture, which is very nice, but it's all like run down. And we had dinners with the people from Cuba, like young people that were thinking of going to Israel, because Cuba allows the Jews to go to Israel, but they don't allow them to go to America. Wow. So some Jews will go to Israel and then go to the U.S. or go to Spain after that. And the reason is that in Cuba they don't have good housing. Grandparents live with their there's 3 generations living in a house. They have poor housing, and there's no jobs also. Oh my God. So So there's a lot of intermarriage. The Jews in Cuba, a lot of them marry non-Jews, and the non-Jews convert to be Jewish. But it could be that they want to get out of Cuba, you know. We didn't see any Chabad in Cuba. We're not sure why, but maybe it's because there's a question of who is a Jew because of they don't have any rabbis at all in Cuba. There's no rabbis. There's some that get imported from other South American countries now and then, like on the high holidays. People want to have conversions or get married. So at one point they had about 20 couples or something all got married at the same night when the rabbi came. So that's what's going on there. So we visited the American consulate. There's no American embassy in Cuba because there's no relations with the United States, but there's like an American attaché, and he with a bunch of staff is. Oh, that's a video.
That's okay.
That's Rachel and Daddy dancing. They were dancing a lot on this vacation.
We'll watch it.
They had good music. The Cuban jazz was good.
It wouldn't go in here. I could try putting it in the other room. I don't know if it'd be distracting when I try to put it in.
No.
What is it now?
CD, Cuban music.
Here we got Cuban music.
There's a lot of live music there.
This is us? Yeah.
During lunch. It was during lunch one time.
Yes, during lunch, yes.
Albert, is it a safe place to travel?
There's not a lot of crime, but they don't have good hotels and stuff like that. And then it's hard to drive.
How long were you there for?
8 days. We flew to Miami, then you take a short flight to
It's not so
Cuba.
bad,
It's
we've
only
been
like
dancing.
45 minutes, and you're mostly flying over the Keys. And
You could fly from Miami to Cuba.
it was a charter flight, charter.
How many Jews live in Cuba?
Was it 50,000?
No, there's 11 million people in Cuba now, but there's only
This is where Havana
1,500
is. This
Jews
is where
left in
Santiago
Cuba.
is.
1,500?
Yeah, that's all that's left. I mean, one of the synagogue had 20 members that we went to, and their synagogue was in a living room like this in somebody's house.
Are they mostly Sephardic, the Jews there, or no?
It's like half and half.
I'd say
But
it's half
they've had
and
no religion for 50 years under communism.
Right.
No religion allowed, so it's like they don't know very much.
Some people, I reviewed a book where people came
1,500?
from Europe to
1,500.
Cuba in the Holocaust.
It's such a mix there that...
Right, but then they left, a lot of them leave,
Because
right?
the ones that stayed are the poor or sicker people
Right,
or
right.
parents that couldn't get out.
Right.
So 1,500, 150. Oh my goodness, it's
And most of the synagogues get donations.
This is the bigger synagogue, the conservative one.
Wait, can you go back for a second?
That's a car that was in a bar.
Oh, go back to the
Go back to the synagogue for a minute.
cars are beautiful.
Can you go back to the synagogue for a minute?
50 Chevrolet.
No, just but ask me a question.
57 Chevys. Look at that, yeah. 57 Chevys.
Yeah,
Go down there and buy some.
55,
She's
50.
on.
So what do you want to know about the synagogue?
No, I just missed seeing it, that's all.
It's sort of like a conservative synagogue here. You know, everyone sits together. And
How they keep it together? They get money or?
No, rabbi, who does
this is a
Who
nightclub.
sends money to them?
The Americans send money. Canadians, a lot of Canadians give money.
This is the nightclub at the hotel.
Yeah.
The jazz is phenomenal.
So anyway, the U.S. consulate has a guy there, and they have about 1,000 Cubans a day giving them visa applications to try to get out of Cuba. Each one they charge them like $100, $120, and the consulate runs off of the money from the applications that they turn down. They don't get any money from the U.S. government. This consulate runs on the money from the applications that people are denied. The U.S. consulate is in the old U.S. embassy, which is now the Swiss embassy, except there's no Swiss in the building. It's only U.S. people in the building. So it's just kind of under name only sort of a thing.
Wow. Is this a Jewish cemetery?
So this
Is
was-
that the Sephardic cemetery?
So the Sephardic cemetery we didn't actually get to because it's kind of off in the distance. The bus couldn't get there, but we went to the they have some Holocaust memorials in their cemetery, which was one of the first ones that was started.
Wow.
One of them says that they have soap made from humans that was buried in that grave, and they have that Holocaust memorial there. A lot of the graves were in not good shape, so they're doing a lot of work now to help build them up. And a lot of Americans are going there. When we were there was a group from California, and then all the books in the synagogue were donated by a group from New York and Canada. Also, a lot of Jews were coming there. Because it's a mission, we were able to go like that. But if you want to go privately, you have to go to Mexico or Canada.
Your daughter's Skyping? Oh, wonderful, so she could be here. They're right here, then. They're with us.
They have a memorial for Ethel and Julius Rosenberg. Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were Americans who were executed for spying for the Russian government. And they were executed in the early 1950s. And Cuba made a memorial because Cuba was communist, and they're trying to get more benefit out of the U.S. Killing these communist spies. During the time when they were executed, though, the whole Jewish communities were lobbying again, to try to help them, and they shouldn't be executed. And even when the husband was executed, they tried to get the wife to back off, and she should kind of deny it, and then they would let her live. But she refused to make a confession, so she was also executed. And then I remember in the academy they had their children coming around speaking.
Right. They write and speak now.
Right.
Now their grandchildren, one of them's a filmmaker. And made films about this.
So what happened was when USSR collapsed, all this stuff came out about spies that had been going on there. Also, the CIA stopped keeping certain things secret, and it turned out that Julius Rosenberg was a spy, and he did give secrets of the atom bomb to Russia.
He did, but people felt that in the end that he had been executed because he was Jewish. That they both had been executed only because they were Jewish.
And they were like the only spies to ever be executed.
It was definitely
There's been maybe 2 or 3 out of dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
Even really damaging ones, like recently.
Well, even what's his name is still, although that's controversial. It's,
Well, the guy that's
no one's 100% sure why Pollard is.
There's a guy that's been in a military hospital for 15 years instead of jail. What's his name?
But I heard
I've
that
heard that.
Gross, right.
So he's there now because he was trying to set up internet connections for one of the Jewish communities there, and he's basically brought in a sort of a phone company with equipment to set up internet, and then the Cuban government caught him. The Cuban government wants to trade him for 5 Cuban spies that the U.S. is holding, and so, but the U.S. government isn't doing that yet.
Did you see any property there? This all looks beautiful.
There's a lot of This says fatherland or death. So the only billboards you see are pro-Cuban billboards. Nothing for any products, and there's hardly any stores, or you can really buy that much stuff either.
Well, the people make about $20 a month. That's their salary.
And they get food stamps for food.
Yeah, they get ration books for food.
So the people are very poor, but they're all equal. It's not like there might be some rich people that you don't see, but everybody's kind of.
Misery.
We asked one of the girls who came to have dinner with us, who lives in Cuba, if people wanted the Cubans to become like the U.S., like Puerto Rico, or do they want to stay communist? She said it was half and half. So, but you can see that the country is slowly moving more towards capitalism, basically because communism is not effective. The economy is not working well. There's no housing and jobs, and they're just not functioning well. So,
I heard their medical system is pretty good, though.
the medical system doesn't have supplies, but they have good knowledge. There's people go from Mexico there to get operations, and they do have good education. But we had to bring antibiotics, and they just can't get the basic stuff. just because they don't have the cash.
Or like they have to wait a long time for surgeries and stuff like that.
This was a huge cemetery in Havana. That past thing was a huge cemetery in Havana that had 6 million graves in it.
Oh my god.
Remember that? It was like,
Yeah.
like a city.
What?
This was a little pottery
6 million
place.
graves in the cemetery.
A huge cemetery that was just.
They can bury us up.
Hi, Rhoda.
Hi, Roni. We miss you.
Hi, Renee.
Israel. See the group.
It's in the 80s in Israel today.
Just having a 1 minute Hironite break.
Hi,
Shalom.
See Effie there, honey?
Oh, Effie's in the back there. Hi, Effie.
Show her the spread.
It's okay. Back to the regularly scheduled program.
There were no rules. There's horses grazing by the road. There was bulls in the fields next to the road. There's just no. Everything's just laid back and free.
It's not from scratch. It's, frozen.
The biggest highways were kind of like just big streets, basically. This is from one of the towers looking down. Right. There's no, there's not much crime, but maybe because it's a dictatorship, they don't have to. You don't get a day in court, so people, like Iran, they cut your hand off, you know what I mean? So people just don't do crime.
The crime don't pay.
We had a few days on the beach, but we didn't really. It rained every day that we were there.
How long were you there?
8 days.
8 days.
It was sunny one day. The one day we were at the beach. It
Oh,
was
the food was nice. And the food
Yeah.
Nice pool. I don't think I could go.
We had lots
So
of
that's 18 minutes.
Yeah, that was fun.
We had this
Mojitos.
and the other one white one.
The white one.
There's a, I don't know if we're going to see it, but there's a memorial to John Lennon because the Beatles were banned because the Cuban government didn't think it was good culture. So the Beatles were banned, and when John Lennon was killed, a huge crowd of people gathered in their main square against the law, and they just sang John Lennon. They just sang Beatles songs. And so then someone built a statue of John Lennon in this park, and people go visit it. So he had glasses on in the statue, and people would steal the glasses every so often. They keep
So they have a
replacing
security guard there just to watch
That's
John
it.
Lennon.
So they have some crime.
Yeah.
Steal glasses.
But you know
This is
what's interesting
This
is
was a synagogue that was in a house. This is in a house where they had a
Yeah.
synagogue. Go ahead.
that a lot of people we met that could speak English, because most people there don't speak English, they said they taught themselves English by listening to Beatles songs.
Because there's no TV. They have 4 Cuban channels, and you can't get any American
I think
channels.
it just sounds like a horrible place to live.
Yeah.
You got a Cuban hat on there?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Only at the hotel we have at the hotel we have
Before
American
they
channel.
went back to live with his father, Elian. And everybody was like, oh, he should go back to his father.
Right, that was a big
Elliot
scandal.
would've
It was a big scandal. Right.
Oh, the girl. Okay.
You know, Elian Gonzalez. Remember?
Oh, should we leave the pictures there going while
No,
Serena
too
speaks?
distracting. But we'll put them on when she's done.
Let's switch to Skype because